What is going on YouTube? This is Root. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the debut mixtape by 50 Cent. And this project's called Guess Who's Back. Came out in the spring of 2002, right around the same time that Eminem dropped the Eminem Show. And this is basically the project that Eminem found 50 Cent through. Basically, 50 Cent had an attorney who knew Paul Rosenberg, who was Eminem's manager, and that's how that movement got kicked off with him being on Shady Records. Now, a lot folks said that this was kind of a rave release, and I liked the quality of how this album came together, but I really found like this project was not quite as noteworthy as later 50 Cent projects, as later mixtapes included. But I did like the fact that it jumped off the page enough to get Eminem to sign 50 Cent, 'cause that's definitely a deafening type thing that happened, definitely needed to happen, and just overall it's just good timing and everything else like that. But I would have to say that this is a very stark and minimalist and very hardcore East Coast type album in a lot of ways. I kind of look after it like there's not really any singles on this project. And really 50 Cent was kind of blackballed from the industry in the United States and had to record this project, I think, in Canada. I think 50 Cent had to record this project in Canada because he was blackballed from recording in studios in the United States because he got shot all those times. So that's definitely the concept. This is the project that he was working on after getting shot basically around the time when he was getting ready to put out his year 2000 album Power of the Dollar. And basically, for what it is, I would have to say that this project is ahead of the pack in terms of like the quality and the impact that 50 Cent had. But looking back on the album, it's not quite as noteworthy as Get Rich or Die Tryin', The Massacre, Curtis, Before I Self Destruct, some of those type projects. But it is definitely like a muddled and kind of ferocious kind of album that has it's a muddled and ferocious album that has some bite just because 50 Cent is so hungry. And that's definitely something to talk about in terms of the quality, is just the fact that 50 Cent was hungry on here and was able to kind of convey some of these concepts as far as catching Eminem and Paul Rosenberg's attention and stuff like that, while also kind of showcasing stuff. I mean, for a lot of folks, you would look after it getting blackballed from like a recording studio from recording studios throughout the United States would be enough to kind of hang up the mic. I mean, there's not too many folks who'd say, okay, well, I'm going to move to Canada, get like a Canada membership or whatever, citizen. I mean, because 50 Cent had to actually be able to get into Canada, and the fact that he had basically gotten shot, and the fact that Canada even let him do it was really saying something, just looking upon that prospect, because there are folks like Europe and Canada are kind of defensive places about that sort of stuff. So the fact that 50 Cent even managed to make a career after getting shot 9 times, not to mention the fact that he got shot 9 times and could have died. So there's just a lot of stuff that kind of goes along with that. So it's just it is interesting. The storyline behind this album is pretty rave and that type stuff, but I just think that it didn't quite, in my opinion, didn't stand the test of time in terms of quality. But I still would have to say, as far as that's kind of concerned, that there are some gems on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and recommend. There's 17 songs on here. There's 18 songs on the CD, but minus the drop skit, there's actually 17 songs. So I'm going to talk about the 5 songs out of 17 I recommend. So those 5 songs would be Ghetto Quran. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. Ghetto Quran. That's What's Up. Get Out the Club. Stretch Freestyle and Corner Bodega. So probably my favorite song on here is probably Ghetto Quran. I feel like this one has the most factory ready, stock kind of commercial 50 Cent single. This is the one with the most gloss. It definitely feels like a sophisticated skyscraper type song, just going in and out throughout the city. Has a nice hook on here. Is just 50 Cent showcasing his hook ability and the stuff that he would do on his later albums, like with songs like Wangsta and PIMP and some of that type of stuff. It's just kind of a sophisticated midday kind of glossy New York type tune that has a lot of valve towards it. And the reason why I'm looking back and forth is because I have to use 2 computers to do this. So if you're looking for another song like Ghetto Quran, another song like that is Get Out the Club. This is kind of a lobby and lounge type song. I definitely see this as kind of being like a sophisticated kind of building, sophisticated more kind of fancy building type song, but just kind of a place that would have like a lounge or a lobby, maybe like hotels or just places that have lounges and lobbies and that type of stuff, just for kind of congregating, maybe having like a quick drink at the bar or something like that, just to kind of have. But it just is a nice lounge and venue kind of song, and it's kind of ritzy overall. This is another one that 50 Cent constructs a pretty solid hook on here. Both Ghetto Quran and Get Out the Club are the most glossy of most of the songs on here. I mean, he does a lot of street and kind of stark boom bap East Coast type productions on here, but I feel like those two songs I list are at least some nice ones. That's What's Up is a nice posse track by G Unit. This one just has like a real kind of, this is kind of a minimalist and stark beat, but I do like it just because it's a great one to hear Lloyd Banks and Yayo and 50 Cent all tear apart. Lloyd Banks goes first and really tears it up, 50 Cent second, and Yayo's third, and they just have a pretty good time. This is a start of what G Unit would do later, especially on like Beg for Mercy and that type stuff. So it was just interesting kind of get that one. I definitely saw it as a nice hot box kind of song. It's a lyrical gem, just really solid as like a nice lyrical kind of like, damn, these cats went in, just that kind of raving and hooting that folks do when you listen to songs in a vehicle and you're smoking and just getting loaded and that type of stuff and noticing that sort of thing. Stretch Freestyle and Corner Bodega are both kind of short songs, but they both kind of come off to me as just like interim and just kind of in the car, or just kind of cruising around or just jiving around town, that type of stuff in the city, and just kind of a lot of New York type tunes. But I feel like the Stretch Freestyle one's a little bit more tense. It's kind of dramatic and tense, but it just really feels like a good up tempo kind of city like tune on here. I definitely like the vibe of that one. It's really kind of it really kind of sounded endangered and that type of stuff. Where 50 Cent was kind of on some Tupac type paranoia, and then Corner Bodega is just kind of a bleary, kind of sophisticated city type tune. And then yeah, Corner Bodega is kind of like a bleary city type tune that just feels really jivey and busy. This would have to say amongst how that sort of stuff kind of goes. It's just kind of a jivey type tune and just is very kind of busy and kind of roundabout and just kind of traversive. I just think that's kind of the concept. I'm just looking for more words that are to describe it besides busy, but it's just kind of busy and such. So those would be the 5 songs out of 17 I recommend. Just not many. There's a lot of bad productions on here. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. There's a lot of kind of stark, really kind of hardcore East Coast hip hop type beats on here, and there's just some ones I kind of question, like even rapping too, like especially like the freestyles at the end, like Woo Kid freestyle and Doo Wop freestyle are just overall bad songs to freestyle to. And it's the same thing with 50 bars. I just wasn't, even if 50 Cent was trying to prove his vitality as far as rapping, none of the songs that were kind of freestyle, none of the songs that were freestyled to are trying to showcase some wordplay on in terms of that context in like a freestyle type setting were that interesting to really have. There's just a lot of poor productions on here, too many to list as far as that's kind of concerned. I feel like the 5 songs I picked out for you have the most gem worthy, most gloss on them, and 50 Cent wasn't really aiming for gloss like he was kind of on Get Rich or Die Trying, where he kind of crafted to the radio. I feel like the 50 Cent that we would have gotten had Eminem and Shady Records and Aftermath not found him, probably would have been very similar to this album. I think it would have been more stuff like this, where I think 50 Cent was at least aiming to do like some, I feel like 50 Cent was at least aiming to kind of do some glossy songs somewhat like Ghetto Quran and like Get Out the Club. I just think it would have been a lot more street oriented and a lot more hardcore. Maybe like Nas, the sort of stuff that Nas was going to do. I think he probably would have been in more of like a Nas sense, where he just would have been known for like his street sheens and kind of more lyrical barbs and that type of stuff, and his edgy kind of G Unit crew and that sort of stuff. It was a taste of what would have happened with 50 Cent. But I'm glad that we got the more commercial kind of appeal of 50 Cent with Get Rich or Die Trying and The Massacre and some of those, because I feel like it really fit 50 Cent like a glove, and Dr. Dre and Eminem really helped hem 50 Cent quite a bit. So that's just kind of the concept about it. But this is, at least if you wondered, like, okay, what would 50 Cent be like if he were commercial and on a label, but not full-blown commercial like he was on some of his singles. This is kind of the concept of it. But I just think he probably would have been too hardcore and too overtly street to have really crested very high. I think he might have had like some edgy street singles every now and then, but he wouldn't probably have hit #1 and #3 on the Billboard like he used to and such. So I'm going to go ahead and give this album, me liking 5 songs out of 17. I'm going to go ahead and give this album about a 3.25 out of 10. I mean, I want to give it a higher score, but there's just not enough on this project to really warrant that. I mean, it's good, it's revolutionary, it helped kick off a legend in the game and that type of stuff, but it just didn't really do enough to signify at least the quality of this album. So that's this kind of thing. So 3.25 out of 10. The social score, I'll give a 4.5 out of 10, just because there are actually some social moments on here. There's just not an overabundance. This is basically those five songs I listed: Ghetto Quan, Get Out the Club, That's What's Up, some of those type moments, and like Corner Bodega and Stretch Freestyle. But there's just not an overabundance. It's just kind of like a mid jivey kind of tune, but it just needed a few more tracks to be able to consolidate. As far as it kind of has some of those city type feels that kind of get you excited and enthralled and that type of stuff, but it does not nearly do it overtly. That's this kind of thing. I would say maybe good 15 minutes worth of tunes like that, just some kind of in between mixes for your mixtapes and that type of stuff, but it's just not an overall home run kind of success type thing. That's just kind of the thing. So 4.5 social. So in terms of the future, like 50 Cent, I learned this recently, but apparently he's thinking about retiring from music. He's getting ready to do his Get Rich or Die Trying world tour, and that's the 20th anniversary of Get Rich or Die Trying. But hopefully he doesn't retire. I still want Street King Immortal. I mean, I know that that's kind of like detox at this point, but it would be good to get another few albums from 50 Cent. But we'll see what happens with it. This is worth seeking out in small degrees if you are looking for some more kind of hardcore gems from Fifth.